Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Kane's independent media production. Today, we're talking about something that is more important now than ever because we use them all the time, getting the best audio possible from our smartphones. Advancements in technology and smartphones in the last few years is just ridiculous. They've gotten so good, and particularly in terms of the cameras, they've just gotten unbelievable. I know many people have, stopped using traditional cameras because of how much power there is in their smartphone. Now, having said that, and especially for musicians where we are audio focused, that part of it has not really kept up pace with the cameras, but we wanted to get into how we can use these most effectively and get the best sound, whether it's for practice sessions or teaching, or if you're capturing audio and video at the same time for posting online, things like that. For those of you that have been watching our show before, it's fair to say that we have an extraordinary amount of high-end video equipment here, as well as many thousands of dollars worth of microphones on the drum set. The normal rig that we use on the drum set, if you went out and tried to find it just, in a store, is somewhere in the realm of between $3,500 and $4,000. But today, you are going to hear that compared with the best we can do with the microphone inside of Ben's iPhone today. This phone is a iPhone 12 Pro, and we're going to be experimenting both with placements, settings, and some app options that can really optimize what we're getting out of it. First things first, we're going to hear our normal microphone setup as we normally do it, and then we're going to hear that same stuff through the standard camera app in the iPhone. We're not adding any EQ or compression to this at all. If you hear something that sounds like EQ or compression, that's inherent to the device. Now, as you can hear, it's pretty different. Granted, of course it's going to be because we're going from studio mics into a phone situation, but there is some things going on in the audio with the phone that are not just because it's a phone speaker. When we listen back to it, we can definitely hear that it is attuned not necessarily for recording drums. There is some compression and some sort of adjusting going on the fly inside of the phone that's making the transients sound crazy and making the cymbals sound really crazy. Anytime any of us have recorded ourselves with our phones, this is generally the audio that we've come to expect. In the course of Ben's work here, he came upon an app called Filmic Pro, which is technically a video app, but it also gives you a lot of control over the audio as you're recording it, including being able to turn off some of these kind of like recording optimization features in the phone's microphone so that you can get something more akin to just the pure audio that's happening in the room with no sort of automatic effects added to it. We're going to try a few different perspectives or locations for the phone to see how that changes the behavior of the audio going into it, see if we can find the optimal place to put the thing. This location looks good on video. It's kind of a nice perspective of the whole kit, but as you can also hear, it's a little bit hi-hat heavy, it's a little bit snare wire heavy, not so much presence on the bass drum because it's sort of off axis from the kick drum. It's not bad, but it's not the best either. Also, as you can see, we've added a little bit of sort of judicious muffling to the drums. There's not a lot to say about this except to say that we both felt like there was a little much in the overtones in the snare, so we put a little bit of tape, and we also felt that the floor tom wasn't projecting the low end as much as we'd like. These are the sorts of things that you can get into when you're using one or two microphones, where it's about adjusting the behavior of everything together so that if you look at it, it looks like it's all getting treated differently, but then when it gets to the microphone, it actually sounds balanced. Additionally, because we're using Filmic Pro rather than the traditional camera app that comes with the phone, we're able to select which microphone we want to use. And rather than using the stereo mic at the base of the phone, or the one that's sort of facing you from the screen side, we're using the rear-facing one that is right next to the camera lens. All right, time for location number 2. We'll see how that compares. This location is now sort of out in front near where the other cameras are that we normally use when we film. And this is giving us a broader sound, a little more bass drum because we're closer to being on axis with that, a little further away both angle-wise and just straight up distance from the hi-hat, which can be the biggest bleed factor in the whole kit. This is starting to become a pretty significant improvement from everything we've recorded so far. We're really starting to see the benefits also of using the rear-facing microphone next to the camera lens, because ordinarily when you use the camera app, it's using the microphone in the bottom, so you're getting basically audio from straight below the phone rather than directly in front of it. And if you've ever wondered why the audio also doesn't sound particularly direct when you use that, it's because a lot of the time if we're looking at the camera or we're using the phone the way you'd normally hold it, we're actually not pointing the microphone at the thing that we're trying to record. Filmic Pro allowing us to choose which microphone we're using is probably the most valuable part of being able to use that app for recording this kind of audio, because we really want to know that we're getting what we're looking at. And for a $15 app, I gotta say, it's pretty fantastic. By the way, it's really worth noting, this isn't sponsored by Filmic Pro at all. Ben's had the app for a while. He told me about it today. I downloaded it. This is just a tool that we found that we really appreciate. And again, it's a small investment that's getting us a lot better product right now. I mean, you can hear it. All right, final position, probably gonna look familiar. We usually have a camera over there as well. Here we go. At this point, we're basically getting as good as we can get. We are on axis with the bass drum. We're getting a nice full sound there. We have good proximity to the toms. The snare's a little bit further away. It's shielded a little bit, so the overwhelmingness of the wires, even though they're just regular, they're not like 42s or anything, is getting blocked a little bit from there. The balance with the cymbals is nice. If we go back and kind of listen to these two different sounds, the main thing that we're hearing different between Filmic Pro and the standard camera app is something called automatic gain reduction. And what's going on there is it's on the fly trying to limit and adjust the gain to essentially just squash the sound and capture as much of the frequency spectrum and the volume spectrum as possible. It's safe to say that drums as an instrument will have the worst time with this kind of camera situation or audio recording situation because of the frequency spectrum that we take up, along with the fact that we're hitting pieces of metal that have so much high end in them, even relatively dark ones. For a recording scenario like that, there's just no way to get something good out of it unless we can get rid of that issue. Now, it's also important to note that the locations that were chosen today to film from were primarily about getting a good shot of the kit. So for those of us that are posting videos on the internet playing drums, we want to be able to get a good sound with the phone also in a spot where the video looks good, because that's really what we're talking about here. We're trying to do multimedia presentations where the audio is representative of what our kit sounds like and is delivering the sounds that we want to deliver. Also, because we're using the rear-facing microphone rather than the one on the bottom of the phone, it means that if we switch from portrait to landscape mode, vertical to horizontal, we're not changing the perspective of the microphone relative to the drum set. We're going to get the same behavior going into the phone either way. And here are the settings that we used today to get the sounds that you ultimately heard in the demos that we played. If you'd like to hear more of this, also head over to the Patreon, follow the link below. We're going to have a little bit of experimentation over there with how to produce the audio from the phone to get the most out of it possible after we've gotten the good initial raw takes. One other very important thing to mention is that in the wider shots that you saw today from the phone, you may have noticed that we have a significant amount of acoustic treatment in this room from our production partners at GIK Acoustics. This is really defining a lot of the behavior of the sound of the kit, controlling things a little bit, keeping it nice and tight. Your results will vary based on your room. You may have a very well-treated room that sounds different than our treated room, or it might be a bedroom or a practice space or whatever, but especially with an iPhone situation, which is to say a one mic recording situation, the way the room is treated, whether it's a hardwood or carpet, it's really going to affect that sound a lot, so it's worth taking that into account if you're struggling with the sound that you're getting. Keep an eye out for a future video where we go deep into what acoustic treatment is all about, how much of an impact it can have, and how it can really define the sound of your room, the sound of your kit, and everything that you make. All right, thanks so much for watching and listening to all of this. Please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you get notifications about all of our new videos that are coming out. Thanks again to our patrons for keeping us going here. You are the best, and we couldn't do it without you. And lastly, I am super curious if anybody has their own hacks for getting great audio out of their phones. I know that there are external microphones. We've looked up some of these different technologies. We're always trying to find the most effective for the least amount of money. If you've got any hacks like that, we're dying to know.